Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a sense of wonder, but also a tiny shiver of the unknown? In the quiet, rolling hills of Serene Valley, a man named Samuel did just that every single night. He wasn't a professional astronomer, just a simple man with a profound passion for the stars. But Samuel's stargazing led him down a path far stranger and more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. This is the unsettling story of Samuel's disappearance and the cryptic message he brought back. Samuel lived a quiet life, but his nights were filled with cosmic curiosity. Using his modest telescope, he meticulously charted the heavens. Recently, he had become obsessed with something new, something that didn't appear in any of his star charts. He noticed small, luminous variations in the sky-faint lights that danced in patterns he couldn't explain. He filled notebooks with his observations, convinced he was on the verge of a discovery. His friends and neighbors just smiled, chalking it up to Samuel's vivid imagination. They had no idea how wrong they were. The night he vanished was unnaturally still. The air in Serene Valley, usually alive with the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves, was heavy and silent. It was a silence so absolute, so profound, it felt like the world was holding its breath. Then, just before 11 p.m., it happened. Several neighbors reported seeing a strange, pulsating blue light hovering directly above Samuel's small property. It wasn't a helicopter, and it wasn't a plane. It was silent. Yet it bathed the landscape in an eerie, otherworldly glow. A moment later, a deep, metallic hum echoed through the valley, a sound that seemed to vibrate in your very bones before vanishing as quickly as it appeared. At precisely 10:55 p.m., Samuel was gone. The scene left behind in his backyard was a portrait of sudden interruption. His stargazing chair was knocked over, as if he had jumped up in a hurry. His beloved telescope was tilted at an odd, useless angle, pointing at nothing, and on the small table beside it, his latest notebook lay open. The last page wasn't filled with star charts or astronomical notes. It was covered in a series of strange, intricate symbols, unlike any language or code known to humankind. It was as if he had been interrupted mid-sentence while communicating with something or someone. 7 hours. For 7 agonizing hours, there was no trace of Samuel. Search parties combed the woods. Friends called his name into the silent night, but there was nothing. Then, as mysteriously as he had vanished, he reappeared. A neighbor, leaving for an early shift, saw a figure standing stock-still in the middle of Samuel's own yard. It was him, but it wasn't. This Samuel stood with a rigid, unnatural posture, his arms straight at his sides. His skin was cold to the touch, despite the mild morning air. But the most horrifying detail was his eyes. They were wide open, fixed on the sky, a vacant, glassy stare that saw nothing and everything all at once. When his neighbor rushed over, frantic with relief and confusion, Samuel turned his head slowly, a mechanical, jerky movement. He looked directly at the man, his expression blank, and spoke 4 chilling words in a monotone voice. "He is watching you." Rushed to the local hospital. The mystery only deepened. Doctors were baffled. Samuel's body temperature was abnormally low. His reflexes were completely absent, and his pupils dilated and contracted with no regard for light, following some irregular internal rhythm. He was physically present, but it was as if the person who was Samuel had been hollowed out. His speech, when he chose to speak, was fragmented and cryptic. He would whisper about blinding lights, an immense solitude, and the strange sensation of his body feeling like a shell, a temporary vessel that didn't belong to him. His behavior was erratic and deeply disturbing. At times, his voice would take on a metallic, resonant quality, completely inhuman. He would spend hours in absolute immobility, staring at the ceiling, before suddenly snapping his head to look at the door as if expecting a visitor. Nurses reported feeling a strange, vibrating energy when they touched him. Supernatural phenomena began to plague his hospital room. Lights would flicker and die without cause. Medical equipment would malfunction wildly whenever he was near. The room would grow inexplicably cold. Samuel had brought something back with him, an aura of the unknown that warped the reality around him. The climax came in the dead of night. At exactly 3:17 a.m., a security camera in the hallway outside his room captured a final, terrifying event. The footage shows Samuel standing in the doorway of his room. He is completely expressionless, but his eyes are solid black orbs, reflecting the camera's small red light. He stares directly into the lens, as if he knows he's being watched, and says in that same flat, metallic voice, "You do not understand the invitation." And then, in a blink of an eye, he is gone, not walked away, not run. He simply vanishes from the frame, leaving an empty doorway and a lingering sense of dread. There was no trace. The hospital and local authorities, facing a situation they couldn't explain or control, quickly attempted to cover up the entire incident. Official records were altered, staff were told to remain silent, and the official story became that Samuel, a mentally unstable man, had simply walked out of the hospital and was now a missing person. But they couldn't erase everything. Samuel's notebook, recovered from his yard, became a key piece of this impossible puzzle. Experts in linguistics and cryptography from around the world were consulted, but none could decipher the symbols. They belonged to no known human language, ancient or modern. More disturbingly, some of the patterns drawn alongside the symbols bore a striking resemblance to complex crop circles that had appeared in fields across the globe. It was a language not meant for human eyes. When you lay out the sequence of events, a terrifying pattern emerges, one that echoes countless other reports of alien abduction. First, the observation, the strange lights Samuel was tracking. Second, the contact, the blue light and metallic sound on the night he vanished. Third, the alteration, Samuel's reappearance with profound physiological and psychological changes. Fourth, the message, his cryptic warnings and phrases like "he is watching you and you do not understand the invitation." And finally, the disappearance, his ultimate, inexplicable vanishing act. What was the invitation? And who is the he that is watching? Samuel last records words before his first disappearance offer a chilling clue. Scrawled at the bottom of his notebook, a final, frantic entry read, "He will return when the sky opens." Does this foretell a future event, a must return? Or is it a metaphor for a shift in perception, a moment when humanity is finally forced to see what's been there all along? The story of Samuel doesn't end with his disappearance. In the months and years that followed, the residents of Serene Valley and the surrounding region began to report strange occurrences. Mysterious lights in the sky became more frequent. Unexplained humming noises would echo through the hills at night. People would wake up from vivid, recurring dreams of floating in a space of blinding white light. Most unsettling of all were the reports of a sudden, deep vibration felt within their own bodies, a feeling that lasted only a moment before disappearing, leaving them shaken and confused. It makes you wonder how many others have experienced something similar but dismissed it. How many have seen a strange light heard an odd noise, or had a dream they couldn't explain, and simply brushed it off as nothing. Perhaps Samuel wasn't the first. Perhaps he was just the first to be noticed. His story leaves us with an unnerving sense of constant surveillance. The idea that we are being watched by entities we cannot comprehend, that the sky we look to with wonder might just be a one-way mirror. Samuel is gone, but his warning echoes. He is watching you, and perhaps the invitation he mentioned has already been sent to more of us than we realize. Thank you so much for joining me on this dive into the unknown. If this story captivated you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations of the world's greatest mysteries. Let me know in the comments what you think happened to Samuel. Until next time, keep looking up.